Hello, everybody. You win some, you lose some, but you live. You live to fight another day. Now, let's brush ourselves off. Let's get this bread. Recording live from somewhere. This is One and Done.
Get out the insurance cards, get out the copays. The office is open, my friends. Brought to you by drroto.com.
It's time once again for everybody to come aboard that Green Screens Media train. Welcome to One and Done, your fast break of college basketball information, powered by the galaxy's, no, the universe's greatest website, drroto.com. I am your humble host. My name is Jay Heinrich, and I happen to be the conductor of the aforementioned Green Screens Media train. Find me on X at Dr. William Cannon. Follow me, and I will smash that follow back button. I am known to do that, ladies and gents. I am known to do that. But without further ado, let's get right to two of the absolute best in the business to do it, starting with El Capitan himself, the captain of the Green Screens Media ship. He does the ship, I do the train. Follow him on X at MC Holland34, the OG Money Mike. That is Mr. Mike Holland. Mike, what it do, baby?
What it do, my friend? I'm ready for a new slate. I'm ready for a do-over. I'm ready to get the cut man out here. Get me out here for this 12th round so I can knock someone out. This slate today was insane. We had the late news for Georgia. We got on Dylan James 100% and smashed that. But then Matthew Morrell decided to take a puke and not feel well about 5 minutes into the game. And then McCollum, he decided that he was not going to play 1 minute after lock, or at least it wasn't reported until then. So, yeah, not the greatest day, but it's all right. Alabama struggled to score any points today, but we digress. We move on. We've got a 10-game slate to move on to, and the PrizePicks have been heating up. So whenever DK's falling, the PrizePicks come on up. I'm on a heater on PrizePicks 5 in a row here. We'll drop some of those for you guys here in the next couple of days. And then if you guys missed our conference preview show, we did 12 conferences the other day. And, by the way, the Atlantic Sun, it is completely bonkers right now. The number 1 seed was taken out by Jacksonville, Eastern Kentucky going down. Lipscomb, the 3 seed, also went down today. And we talked about Austin Peay potentially being able to win this thing. On that preview show, they are the 4 seed. Well, it took overtime and their coach jumping on to the scorer's table there and to celebrate there. So we'll see how the rest of these conference tournaments go, but it's going to be absolutely bonkers.
No doubt about it. The live chat is already bonkers, so keep that rolling as we get to our guy that is last in the intros. Not first, but last. However, you know damn good and well that he is first right here in El Corazon, in your hearts. The Baron of Bread of Green Screens Media, who you can find in those Twitter streets at Fantasy Nav. He's Eric the Blue. That is Mr. Eric Romov. What's happening?
Man, similar story for me as the one that Mike spun off the top, right? Like, news got us again on tonight's DK slate. Chris Beard being a maniacal supervillain got us on tonight's slate. And then look, I don't want to throw shade on someone that's sick, but Matthew Morrell, like, you need to learn about the concept of the boot and rally. I don't know how many times I've had to let a little one go and just power through.
Did we lose the blue there? The blue is gone. Yeah, that's how back. Oh, there he goes, man.
There we go.
I thought you were doing your best impersonation of starting the game and then 2 minutes in, just taking yourself out.
Doing my best Morrell impersonation. No, just guess we got a loose wire here in the mic, so we'll power through. But like Jay mentioned, the chat's already getting after it. Mama Rock's checking in with the Hey Superstars, the 1, 2, 3 headed monster. This slate stunk. Yeah, it sounds like she was working her way through it. We can burn away the memories of this slate with our boy Nape heating us up. Mama Rock's much obliged as well. Forklift Jeremy, who was getting hot. The AC.
Keep them
It's
coming.
lit tonight. The Mama Rock's giving a little love to Jeremy as well. Love seeing all this interaction, this community that we're building, chopping it up in the chat.
Loving that. Always love it. We love it also when you hit those like and subscribe buttons. What are we up to? 809 now. On our way, should be 810 by this evening if our guy at the Real Napier has anything to do with it. So we'll see. But here we go. We're on the climb to 11 gazillion subscribers. But right now we're sitting at 809. So help us be the next one and help us keep growing. And like Eric said, growing this community here, the Green Screens Media Universe, as we like to call it. After you do that, let's get on into this 10-game slate. All these lines that we do, all the numbers that you hear, metrics and stuff like that, this is all Ken Palm numbers here. So some, no games in the 170s in terms of expected totals like last night, or like tonight, I guess I should say. If we're talking about Tuesday night, but we are filming this on Tuesday for Wednesday's slate. So if you're watching later on, let us know in the comments, but also that's what I mean by that. So we've got the $15 pull-up jumper, 3K to first on this 10-game slate. Any King of the Bracket stuff? The $95 King of the Bracket seats as well on this Wednesday slate that we're covering here. 10-gamer. Let's hit this overview and get y'all's thoughts on this slate before we dive into our showcase tonight. Start with Eric the Blue. Go ahead and give us your overview of this slate.
10-gamer, like you said, a little bit of an earlier tip than tonight's slate. And where we sit a little less than 24 hours ahead of time feels like you can kind of do whatever you want. We've already got 4 or 5 solid value options. Then you've got the ever-looming injury news that could potentially feed us a few more. So we don't have to make the ED decision, which means that, our average remaining per player goes up by about $1,000 now. Arkansas is on the slate, which is a familiar foe for us. No. But, we're not forced to wade down into those Arkansas value waters, right? So, a little bit of some signs that are familiar here, some things that are a little bit different. One of the things to make note of is that this 10-gamer has got some of the kind of uglier totals on the board, right? 4 of our 10 games under 140-point game total. Houston is always one of the teams that is carrying a low total, so we can cross off that game against UCF. The Houston side might have a little bit of intrigue, but a lot of that is a little bit more to do with pricing than anything else. And kind of oddly enough, the other 3 games that are carrying these lower totals, like there are a few bright spots in terms of the options in the player pool there, whether it is a particular matchup, whether it's a points per dollar play. So it's weird because usually with totals this low, we just generally kind of avoid them. But I think we can kind of pick our spots in those 4 games that I mentioned on tonight's or tomorrow's slate. Mike, enough rambling from me. Anything else of note heading into the 10-gamer?
When you look at our rundown here that we'll go over, we don't have the top 2 totals. We are not showcasing the top 2 totals. Why? We got Xavier and Butler. That one has a chance for some fireworks, but if you look at how expensive the Xavier side has gotten, and then Butler's priced where they should be, and that usually is distributed across the board with those guys, doesn't feel great to really get into that game. Other than the environment itself, there should be a couple of guys that obviously get there, but as a whole, it's kind of weird to game stack that one. And then obviously we have Arkansas, and they're playing LSU, so there's going to be like 20 guys that check into this game. Arkansas's top heavy now since Tremont Mark and Khalif Battle are essentially taking every single shot on this team. And then you have the roller coaster value that you don't even know if these guys are going to play 20 minutes. With LSU, it kind of feels like Butler, where they're priced correctly, but they play even more guys than Butler does. So kind of weird to look at those 2 games. We'll have some tier plays with those 2 games, but honestly, like getting into those 2 games feels a little weird. So just something of note there. And then, I don't mind that Houston side, man, but anytime we play Houston, you just cross off the other team.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Keep the live chat flowing hit those buttons for your broskies in basketball. Follow us all on X. Follow at The Real Napier. Follow at Get Green Screens. Follow at One and Done CBB, the show page. That's where all the magic happens. We're over 1,000 followers there, and we appreciate every single one of y'all for doing that. Thanks for helping us grow this little thing that we are doing here with Green Screens Media and One and Done. Now let's get into the showcase, a 3-game showcase. And like Mike said, we're fading a couple of the top totals on the board to get to some interesting games. But this first game that we're getting into is actually one of the higher, if not the highest total here. Yeah, one of the highest, the third highest, I guess, that we're not covering. So Boston College at Miami, 155. Miami won the first game on the road, 85-77. Omier had 26-20. No, sorry. Boop. Put the thing down, flip it in reverse. Omier had 26 and 2 the first time out. Cleveland had 20 points, and Joseph had 13, 6, and 7 for the Hurricanes. And then for BC, Matson had 25 points, and Post had a really nice game with 23, 6, and 2. Let's start with Boston College here. Mike, an 8-man rotation, starters hitting all hitting 30 minutes.
Yeah, like this game environment for Boston College here. I mean, 155-point total, and Miami's defense is not very good. They're 12th in opponent 3-point percentage allowed. They're 10th in the ACC in conference play and defensive efficiency. They are also giving up stocks, which you absolutely love. They're 14th in the so almost dead last, second to last in opponent steal rate, also 12th in the ACC in opponent shot block rate, and they're 331st in the country in opponent assist rate. So defense is completely optional here for the Hurricanes, which is why you have to like these BC guys on the road, especially Quentin Post. You just named off his line there, 23 points, 6 rebounds in that first spot. He does get the Omier matchup, but a lot of possessions in this game at 8,900. You love the upside, especially coming off the 55 and the 47 that he put up recently. You know, huge rates, obviously double, 6% shot block rate. So he gets that stock boost there, shooting 44% from 3 on 86 attempts. He can just contribute in so many ways. His floor is going to be very high on this slate. His ceiling is one of the best on the slate. So Quentin Post at 8,900, definitely a tournament play that I like. You can also use them in cash. Jaden Zachary, price adjusted, might be my favorite play for tournaments. He's volatile. Every now and then he'll throw some duds up there, but he'll also get into the 30s. A guy that can shoot it well from 3, and he's a facilitator for them. A 23% assist rate. You love that stock boost with a 3% steal rate, and a guy that can live in the 28 to 35 range. So. Really going to depend on how many shots he takes. He's typically going to get his rebounds. He's going to get some assists. He's going to get some steals. It's just whether or not he's going to hit those double-digit marks there for shot attempts. So, he put up a very nice game against them in the first one. So, you're definitely looking at Jaden Zachary at 6,500 as a tournament play. Everything else on this Boston College side, really like 3 guys for me. Mason Madsen, you mentioned he scored 25 against Miami. That's the thing, man. Miami just struggling to contain the 3 ball. So this is a guy shooting 43% from 3, but very shot dependent, only a 17% rebound rate and 11% assist rate. So you're not going to get a lot of counting stats out of him. At this price point, it's a little tough to play him, especially when Zachary's only $100 more and just gives you a higher floor and a bigger ceiling overall. But, I mean, Madsen's in play just because Miami hasn't been able to stop anybody from the outside. Claudel Harris is there at 5,400. Came off the bench last game, but typically starts the old senior night thing. But high shot rate from Harris, which you definitely like. But because Post and Zachary just do so much for this team, it's just not a lot else to kind of go around for this side. So I think I'm really sticking with Post and Zachary on this side, Eric. Anybody else? I know McLaughlin's sitting there at 5,800, man. Are you willing to punch your ticket in that KOB $95 with some Devin McLaughlin?
Sitting there is a great way to describe Devin McLaughlin at 5.8K. I think the argument for him is really one of creating some leverage as a pivot off of Post. But, I mean, he's sneaky in a GPP context, right? Like you mentioned the stock boost here coming off against Miami. He's got a 3% block rate. That's fine. The rest of his rates, they leave a little bit to be desired apart from his 23% rebound rate. But I mean, you scroll through his game logs here, including this last time out against Miami. He's been able to put up some pretty solid games for kind of a mid 5K sort of guy. But for me, like it feels like he's really much more of the mass multi option. If I'm gonna speculate down here, kind of outside of those top two options with BC, I'm probably going to go down to like a Claudel Harris, who's a few $100s cheaper. He really gets the benefit of that 3-point boost and pretty solid rates for a guy that's in the mid 5K. So that would be where I would look for a mid-tier option for BC. But I mean, McLaughlin can create a little bit of leverage off a post if you're really looking for a reason to play him.
It's going to be hard for me to get to a lot of these guys. I think I might start a lot of my lineups with post and go from there. It's just, and I don't know if I want to double up. I don't know if I want to double up with any of these guys on this side, but would understand why you would want to get into this total. Let's go to the Miami side. The injury news sort of bit us on the Tuesday slate. Now on this Wednesday slate, we've got some injury news with Poplar and Pack on this Miami side. Obviously, two talented players, Mike, but that would basically create a 6-man rotation for Miami. So that sort of juices things up a little bit on this side. So what are we paying attention to?
Well, we're paying attention to 10 minutes before lock to see what happens here, because you'll want to get in this Miami side. I mean, look at the implied total here, right? Like this is a bigger total. If both of these guys are out, they're only going to play 6 guys, and 5 of them are going to play 30+ minutes. So, Poplar undisclosed. Welcome to CBB. If you're just joining us, we think guys are out for the year and they show up the next game. So, Pack has a lower body injury. That doesn't sound good, but like I said, these guys just magically return. I don't know if they have that soccer spray that they just put on the lower half of his body and then he's good.
It's funny you're going soccer. I was gonna say that sounds like a hockey injury where like someone pops up with like an injury to their trunk.
Yeah, just like there's no other sport where you can just put lower body injury on the report and that suffices. No, just hockey.
Yeah, just lower body. But you're going to want some of these Miami guys. Obviously, if Poplar and Pack are out, it creates a lot easier path to get there, and you're definitely going to at least want to have one, I feel like. Boston College 13th in defensive efficiency in the ACC, so two of the poorest teams in regards to stopping their opponents, and they're 13th in the ACC in opponent 3-point percentage and 2-point percentage. So they can't stop anything. Miami can't stop the 3-ball. Miami gives up a bunch of assists. Should be a lot of fantasy goodness, which is why we wanted to get into this game, because 5 guys for BC play. We could be down to 6 guys and really 5 guys playing for Miami. That sounds much nicer than LSU and Arkansas are going to run 20 guys out there. Maybe Jay Heinrich will catch a few minutes in that game as well. But it starts with the Miami side. Norchad Omier here at 8,400. Man, like it's been kind of frustrating to see his career kind of end like this, but a guy with solid rates across the board, can contribute in a number of categories. He was just missing bunnies the other day. Like he should have smashed for 40+ fantasy points. You can see the frustration on him. This is the home game for them, so I expect him to really come out. It's going to be an awesome matchup between him and Post. I worry a little bit about Post being able to shoot the 3 because he's going to be able to pull Omier away from the basket. So maybe not as high upside rebounding, but you still like it here. Like we know what he's capable of. We know that he has a 40 to 50 fantasy point ceiling. He put up 36.5 the first time these two teams played, but at 8,400, like that's just barely over 4x. Like you need him to get into the 40s to really pay this number off. Bensley Joseph at 7,700 has been the beneficiary of Poplar and Pack being out. And his rates have climbed. Usually a guy that doesn't take a lot of shots, but he's having to obviously look for a shot and shoot the ball a bit more. So the last 3 games into the double digits where he was typically like taking 6 to 8 field goals off the bench. But the price has skyrocketed, which kind of takes me away. Even though he still has 35 to 40 fantasy point ceiling, it's just a little bit tougher to envision him going there. Plus the guys that are cheaper are probably where I want to go here. Obviously Poplar at 6,800. If he's in, feels like this is a decent spot for him. He's very shot dependent. Every now and then he'll rack up 5, 6, 7 boards. But if he's in, you would imagine he's going to play 36, 37 minutes. That would obviously be nice at this price point. Anytime you get somebody that plays that many minutes at 6,800, you got to take a look at him. Plus the matchup is solid for him, but we don't know. It's an undisclosed injury, so that's a little scary. The guy that I would really, really look forward to playing, I think a lot of people look forward to playing if Pack and Poplar out, or if just Poplar's out, even if Pack's back in, because he's listed as a guard, but Keyshawn George here at 6K, a dude with 30 to 40 fantasy point upside. Considered a really good NBA prospect, could actually leave after this year, his freshman year. Contributes across the board, shoots 41% from three, has great size. He can facilitate from on the elbow. He can run pick and roll. He can run pick and pops. Like, just a very, very good player. Did not play great, against Duke. 1 for 7 there, only played 20 minutes, but obviously that was a blowout. But he followed that up by smashing Georgia Tech for 42 fantasy points. And then was kind of oddly quiet. Was able to score a little bit in that UNC game, but didn't do much else. But he's usually a guy that can rack up 4 or 5 boards, get you 4 or 5 assists, and then grab some stocks for you as well. So at 6K, if he's going to play 35, 37 minutes in this game with Pack and Poplar out, I have a lot of interest in Keyshawn George here. So, that's it. Nigel Pack's there. If he's in at 5,700, right? Like, we know he's got 30 fantasy point upside, but like, we don't know how many minutes him or Poplar would play, like what the status is as far as like all that news is going to come out super late. So they're more of kind of like cross-offs for me, at least, in theory, right? If we hear they're good to go and they're full go, then they both become interesting plays. But then it kind of muddies up everything else on this Miami side, Eric.
Yeah, it really does. And chief among the things that get muddied by them playing is what to do with Matthew Cleveland. I guess it's fairly straightforward, right? Like, if Poplar and Pack are playing, Cleveland is pretty close to being scratched off. If either, or ideally both of them, are out, you can make a case for Cleveland as a cash game play, right? Like, pretty solid, steady overall. Obviously, will get a bit more run if either or both of those guys are missing. But like, at 7.1K, it kind of caps his upside, right? Like, he can get into like the low to mid 30s, but like, you're really stretching for a point where he's hitting 37, 38 consistently, which you really need for, for these large field tournaments. So like, I think we're talking about a cash argument as a best case scenario for Cleveland. And if there aren't a few guys clearing out of the way, I don't find myself going there.
I don't really blame you. You guys know I love Cleveland, and I thought it was a really big get for them, an in-state transfer. And he's, maybe a better real life player than a DFS player. That's totally fine. I just don't see dropping 7.1K for Cleveland. So yeah, good stuff on that first game. Make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Looks like we've got quite a few people out there in the Green Screens Media universe watching right now. We appreciate that very, very much. Make sure you show us some love in that live chat right now. Forklift Jeremy and Mama Rocks and our guy Nape C Hustle already in there tonight. Make sure you hop in and say, hey, first time, long time, thanks for the vine, whatever you got to do. Just drop fire emoji. We like the fire emojis around here. Drop them in there. Do what you got to do, but shout us out. We appreciate you hanging out with us. We're going to move on now to Tennessee on the road at South Carolina. 5-point favorites are the Volunteers. Now, Mike, you sort of came in, you led off the show with this, but for the viewers that are coming in just right now in the middle of the show, this isn't one of the highest totals on the board here that we're going into. 139-point implied total on this one. We know it's not your grandfather's Tennessee, molasses pace anymore, but this isn't exactly one that looks like the fireworks are going to explode. So why get into this game? Why spend so much time on this one and this sort of a total? And outside of a couple of big stars on either side. I guess start with Tennessee, but why get into this game and then go ahead and then just dive right into Tennessee?
Yeah, and that's a great question, right? Like, why is the 139 point total on this one? I think it's because you just said it, the stars, right? Like, this game was 63-59. Dalton Connect had 31 points and 7 rebounds. Like, there's only going to be, I would say, 15 guys touch the floor in this game, and 8 to 9 of the starters combined are going to play 32 plus minutes. So, you look at like Alabama, you look at Florida, like sometimes like only a couple of guys hit 30 minutes and they play 10 to 11 guys. Well, that might be 170 point total, but you want all the concentration, right? And so this is kind of what you see in this particular game environment. I feel like being at South Carolina here, Dalton Connect is 8,600 and has 50 fantasy point upside. It doesn't matter if the total was 110. It's kind of like Reese Beekman. Like, why do we play Reese Beekman all the time at 7,800 and 8K and he plays for Virginia? Well, Reese Beekman has the ball in his hands all the time. He takes a ton of shots. Like, he just does so much. Now, they're different players, obviously, but Dalton Connect, has had a few duds over the last last 5 games. But I mean, he's also a guy that can go out and get you a 50 spot. So this is a revenge spot for Tennessee, going on the road, looking to knock South Carolina off. This is a very, very important game for the SEC regular season title. So this is not a game that, like, these two teams are going to be going down to the wire. Plus, you might catch an overtime game, and if this game goes into the 150s, now you're talking about a bunch of dudes with a bunch of upside. So, love Dalton Connect, obviously, 8,600. I'm hoping it's kind of contrarian because this is an ugly game environment. I'm hoping we can kind of get the Reese Beekman 10, you get the 15% Dalton Connect. And I will take that if you give me 35 minutes at this guy's shot rate of 32%, shooting 40% from 3. He already dropped 30. I think at halftime he only had like 4 or 5 points in this game, and he exploded in the second half of their first matchup. So definitely interesting. And really, these guys from Tennessee carry massive ceilings no matter what the total is. So Zakai Siegler is another guy that can touch 50, another guy that can get into the 40s. Just rates across the board. I mean, the usage is there for him. The assist rate's 32%. He has a 4% steal rate. He's a direct line pivot off of Dalton Connection, 36% from 3. Saved the $300. He's going to be not owned at all because there is Connect, right? And then there's these other games that people are going to want to get into. So Ziegler, very contrarian tournament, large field play. Jonas Adu kind of come back down to earth here at 7,700. He's probably the one guy that I'm least interested in here. South Carolina, obviously, a great defensive team. They're third in defensive efficiency in the SEC. So you worry a little bit about maybe this game scoring into the the 50s or the 60s. But even though it does that, a star from each side could still have a monster game. Now, I'm not game stacking this game. I'm just really trying to figure out, is it Connect? Is it Ziegler? Vescovy here is at 4,700. Like, that's pretty cheap for him. But we've seen better days from him. Can't believe he's still this price. We've talked about that all year, but this flash 20 plus upside. So you get into a game where he's playing, 30 minutes. Maybe if Vescovy is in the, in the player pool for like a secondary type value play. So for me, it starts with Dalton Connect. We wanted to talk about him, obviously, because he is one of the keys to the slate. Like, what do you do with the Dalton Connect in one of the lower totals on the slate? Do you play him? Do you fade him? I say you play him, especially if you think you're going to get him at lower ownership. So that's who I got on this Tennessee side, Eric. What are your thoughts here?
Not 1, not 2, but 3 J's for Josiah Jordan James, Triple J, as we like to call him. You're really making a case for like a singular star on each side being the one to potentially pop off. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be Triple J, right? He is the pivot off of Connect. So, if we are projecting Connect to be pretty popular, then you are creating some leverage. I don't think we need to chase his last game, right? Put up a 37 spot that last time out. Really, if you're rostering Triple J, you're saying that you think Connect ends up having a down game, kind of like he did last game, right? Connect put up 20, and then Triple J immediately was the counterbalance to that, got almost 40. But, it feels like feels like you're probably getting a little too cute. And really the thing with James here, right? Like he's almost 7K apart from a 23% rebounding rate, which you'll happily take for a guard. There isn't really a whole lot to write home about in terms of his rates, right? Like just everything is going to have to go right. And, you know, in a very tough defensive matchup against South Carolina, it feels like it's probably not that likely to happen. So don't find myself going out of my way to click the button.
I liked him a lot better when he was below 6K. Like that was, and that's not double J, JEFF, JARRETT. No, that's not former Intercontinental Champion Jeff Jarrett. No, this is Triple J. Ain't he great? Well, I know what he is or what he won't be, and that's owned tomorrow. So if you're getting different, because a lot of people are going to go to Connect, and Ziegler for that matter. I want to throw one at you real quick before we move to the South Carolina side. I want projected ownership for Ziegler and Connect tomorrow. What do you think?
Connect is probably going to be. I mean, I want to say he's 15 in this game, but I don't know. Like people have been making so much money off of him this year.
I was going to say closer to 20. That's where my mind went.
Yeah, I mean,
okay, 15, 20. What about Ziegler?
5, 3.
Yeah, single digits, low single digits.
Low single digits, yeah. James too, low single digits. So
if
you think Lamont Paris's game plan
to get to a full percentage point.
Yeah.
You said James might struggle.
Oh yeah, he won't.
To 1.
Yeah, I don't even think he'll be.
Not
might
at
be
this
1 or
price.
2.
He's up $1,000, and it's a tough matchup, right? Like you're getting super cute if you're clicking the button on him.
Thank you. Wow, I appreciate that.
Been working out.
Wow, thanks for noticing. Let's move on now to South Carolina, 7-man rotation. Eric, coming right back to you here for the Gamecocks.
Yeah, so kind of a tale of opposing data points here, right? Tennessee is first in the SEC in defensive efficiency. And you zoom out to all 360-ish teams in the country, and they fall all the way down to third. So a very tough defensive matchup, but the Gamecocks are damn near dead last in tempo, so they are the benefactors of a pace-up spot. Again, Tennessee is 67th in the nation in that regard. So, kind of opposite forces pulling here. Looking at the rosters for the Gamecocks, we'll start with Murray Boyle here, right? We've got a kind of an upset, a bit of a surprise that he is the price king for the Gamecocks. He is our cover boy tonight. I mean, just an absolutely awesome freshman year, right? Like, you're definitely talking about a good GPP option. Love the rates across the board, right? Like getting a 30% rebound rate out of him, but also he's able to facilitate 17% assist rate. He can chip, he can dip, 4% block and 2% steal rate. So, because of this matchup defensively, because of the game overall, like I think you're exclusively looking at Murray Boyles for the tournament context. But it's someone that you're taking some risk for good reason, right? So definitely like Murray Boyles here as a kind of a contrarian dart throw. The other guy here that we have to talk about, Michi Johnson, actually $100 less than Murray Boyle. I mean, he is the alpha on this team, right? Like the absolute leader is coming off of back-to-back huge games, right? Gave them 38 in the last game, 37 the game before. Looking back to this last matchup, again, the very tough defensive matchup against the Volunteers, put up 24 fantasy points in 30 minutes, right? So, like, definitely like him getting pretty close to that fantasy points per minute. He is getting paced up. The kind of the same story with Murray Boyles as it is with Michi. Like, the game total is probably not going to have a lot of people going to either of these options. So, you can definitely consider them as contrarian pieces, but for me, it's really only in the largest of tournaments on tomorrow's slate. Mike, those are definitely the two guys that we have been rostering the most for South Carolina. Anyone else here in that kind of value or mid tier that we need to look at in this game?
I mean, like Cooper, I mean, Jay mentioned had a decent game, right? Out in this first one here, 18 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. I mean, he's on the floor a ton, but at 6,300, like where I would rather spend up to Michi Johnson, right, to get into this game. But this is a home spot, so Cooper, kind of in play here. Feels a little cashy, even though at 6,300, he's been 27, 37, 28. Like that's getting it done over 4x in 3 straight tournaments. But the matchup's real tough. This game could get mucked up and get real ugly. But if Tennessee gets its way in this game, gets a little more pace than what it did last time, there's going to be some nice fantasy points happening here. But outside of that, like BJ Mack, he's not playable anymore, which is kind of sad and kind of weird at the same time. But what you got, Jay?
No, go ahead, man.
Oh no, yeah, that's pretty much it for me. I mean, this is going to be a war. I mean, Tennessee's first in the SEC at 13-3, South Carolina's second. They're 12-4. This game could decide the SEC champ or co-champ. They still have one more game to go after this one, but yeah, whoever wins this game is in line to at least maybe get at least win outright for Tennessee or share the title for South Carolina.
Big time game here, a big time environment, a tough environment, but again, some stars will be in play and in effect. Live chat is rolling again here. What do we got? Jody, man, Jody, good to see you back in. Jody, great night tonight. Got to keep it rolling, staying ahead of the game at 1 and done. Hit the like. Appreciate you, Jody. Thanks for hopping in there and saying that. Mama Rocks, Miles had a good game too. Last time out.
Yeah, but
there he is.
Yeah, old Miles Studi there. He's 3,900, but I mean, just kind of he's a secondary value option. I'm more interested in getting the guys that have high usage and are going to be deciding this conference championship. I don't think Miles Studi is going to.
Yeah, I mean, there's good value out there, right? Like, why go into a tough game environment for your value when you don't have to?
No doubt about it. Good stuff, Jody. Tennessee was first preseason pick. South Carolina was predicted last in the conference. Yeah.
Hey, you don't think South Carolina is going to want this one at home? It's going to be a good game.
That's why they play the games. That's why they just don't roll the proverbial helmets out there on the old field. You got to decide it on the court there. So good stuff, Jody. Thanks as always for hopping in there. Let's keep the live chat rolling. Let's hit the like and subscribe buttons. If you're watching if you're not watching live with us on Tuesday night for this Wednesday slate that we're talking about, make sure you hit that comment section and let us know how you're doing. Show off your green screens. Let us know what your big successes have been. We always appreciate hearing from everybody. We're going to go to UConn and Marquette, the final game of our 3-game showcase here. UConn is 4th in offensive efficiency, 17th in defensive efficiency, and 332nd in tempo. She almost dozed off there talking about the Huskies' tempo there. Marquette is 19th in offensive efficiency, 18th in defense, and 69th in tempo. Nice. UConn is a 7-man rotation here. The Huskies starters, well, at least 4 of them, are playing 30 minutes alongside Klingon, Mike.
Yeah, can we get Klingon into that 30-minute range? I guess nice. He would be 10K, so maybe more. But yeah, I mean, Tristan Newton, 9,600 on this slate. Yikes. But why not, right? Like, it's super contrarian in tournaments to play him at 9,600, and he's been giving you 4+X in 4 straight, almost 5, over 5X twice. So, it's cool to come out here and be like, hey, just don't play Tristan Newton, but we have value on the slate. So, like, he's in the player pool at 9,600. I don't know that I'll actually be able to do that, but if you want to, I could absolutely see a reason why you could do that there. Donovan Klingon's much more appealing at 8,100 because the upside at 8,100 is similar to Tristan Newton's. Obviously, you can go in and put 40 to 50 fantasy points. He's been playing a few more. The minutes are starting to tick up a little bit more. We're getting into the mid 20s here. If we could get a close game, which Ken Palm -2, and UConn -2. I don't know Ken Palm's like factoring in the Tyler Kolek effect here, but I would assume they do. Home matchup for Marquette, right? It's nothing to sneeze at. I don't know. I would obviously be fine that line anywhere near UConn -3 or 4 or even 2. I would absolutely smash that in the spot without Tyler Kolek, but hey, it's college basketball. Like anything can happen. But Donovan Clingan at 8,100, definitely on the tournament radar here. Alex Caravan, a great pivot off of him. We talk about this all the time. He's $1,300 cheaper. He does have 30 to 35 fantasy point upside. He hasn't really been getting there because Tristan Newton and Donovan Clingan have been playing so well. Not for me, but if you want to do it in the large field, you want to stack. Like he's a decent stacking partner with Tristan Newton as well. I know it's pretty expensive, so you really need this game to go over. At least UConn to at least stay tight so these guys play a ton of minutes. Savon Castle here at 6,500. He's just getting better and better and better as the season goes along. He's the X factor for this team as far as the NCAA tournament is concerned with me. He's going to be a high draft pick in the NBA draft this summer. His rates are outstanding across the board for a freshman on a national title contender. 22% usage, 21% shot rate, almost a 20% rebounding rate, almost a 20% assist rate, a 2% block and steal rate. Man, like you have to have him in the player pool, and that's kind of what it is with the starting five. I mean, this is the best, to me, the best starting five in the country. So you can play any of these guys. I made a tweet today, Eric, about Cam Spencer. I don't even know if he's the third best player on this team, which is why I was kind of making fun of a lot of people looking at analytics saying that he could be a Big East player of the year over a Tristan Newton or a Tyler Kolek or a Devin Carter. But that's a whole nother story, man. What about for DFS purposes? What are you doing with them?
I mean, look, that is no shade towards Cam Spencer, right? I think that sort of comment that he might not be the third or fourth best player on this team is much more to do with just how stacked this UConn squad is this year, right? Like it is an embarrassment of riches for the Huskies. Cam Spencer in the DFS context, like, especially at 7.3K, like he's shown that he can do enough to get 5X on this price tag. So feels pretty interesting in a tournament context. You look at their last time out, put up 28.5 points last time they faced off against Marquette. He did so shooting 10 shots, right? You only saw 5 of them go through. So, maybe he gets a few more shots up. Maybe he sees a few more make their way in and you're off and running. The thing with him, the upside's there because of this price tag. I don't think he's really going to be all that popular. So another check in the GPP box. And like I think he's the type of play that in a tournament you can play him one off or you can stack him, right? Like you like his 16% rebound rate as a guard. You like the fact that he's taking 173 point attempts and he's almost making half of them every time he puts them up, right? So like there are a lot of different ways that Cam Spencer can get there, especially at this price tag. So don't mind clicking the button on him.
We're going to move to Marquette, but first I want to know, just like Mama Rocks, are we worried about a blowout at all without Kolek in here? Like, he is obviously, you know how highly I think of this guy, but are we worried about that? Is it possible that this game gets out of hand?
Conventional wisdom would say yes, right? Like I just laid it out. I would take it at 3-4 points, right? But then the Spurs sit everybody against LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, and all the backups play the game to within 1 point. So we see it all the time in basketball. This isn't a road game. It's Marquette. Like they're gonna want to get this one, especially showing that they can step up, especially these guards that are going to be stepping up for Tyler Kolek. So, Jody's saying the 2-point spread on KenPom, it looks spicy. It absolutely does. But sometimes when the spread's now 5.5, I appreciate the update on that, Jody. So if you got it early, congratulations. The Kolek news has been out for a little while. So the analytics, when they're matching these two teams up on KenPom, I would assume there's some type of, I guess they see an advantage here to the home court, the way that UConn or the way that Marquette plays defense, like that's what Shaka Smart came up known for. So they got some ballers on this Marquette side outside of Tyler Kolek, even though I think he should be the back-to-back player of the year in this conference.
He is the most electrifying man in college basketball and in entertainment, Tyler Kolek is. So I totally understand why you might feel that way. He is out for the last couple of regular season games here. Marquette ran 9 guys out there last time around. So no Kolek. What's the haps on the crafts with Marquette?
It feels like Cam Jones is going to shoot a bunch of times. So shot dependency kind of goes away when he has to do a little bit more and facilitate a little bit more to get this offense going. You saw that with 32 fantasy points in that first game that they had against Creighton without Kolek. So 8,200 though, I'm not paying that price tag for Cam Jones. There are just so many other plays on this slate at that price tag that I would rather get to have, Dalton Connect 50 fantasy point ceiling. So Cam Jones, pretty much a cross-off, is not going to be owned on the slate, which is kind of scary if this game does stay within 2 points. You feel like Cam Jones probably has something to do with it, but at a certain point, as Eric likes to say, you're probably getting a little too cute because, that Vegas line, I would not be surprised if by tomorrow it's sitting at 7 or 7.5. People are going to be jumping on this thing.
I'm seeing it at 7 right now.
Okay, yeah, it's just going to keep climbing to, maybe 8, 9 now, which means zig. When everyone's zigging, you zag. Oso Iguodala sitting here at 1,700. So that's the questionable tag. You had the illness. I think he might have been sick, but they're probably just going to sit him anyway in that road game against Creighton. So, Oso here, very, very interesting. I think he's a guy that we kind of profiled him about Kalkbrenner, these big plotting centers, which is what Klingon is. He's a guy that, man, can, as Eric said the other day, put him on skates. Like, he was legit running point. He's the backup point guard for this team. So, he's going to have the ball in his hand. And that's what really hurt them against Creighton is he wasn't able to facilitate the offense for them. Well, he's going to have the ball in his hands if he's in. And at 7,200, I have to have tournament interest in a guy that has these type of rates across the board that will play 35 minutes, that can pull Klingon away from the basket, is more athletic as far as speed with Klingon, so can maybe put him on some skates, get down the floor before he can. I worry about foul trouble, him getting into foul trouble guarding Klingon, but for tournaments, he's definitely in play. Stevie Mitchell, price adjusted, is probably my favorite play on this team. Really wish I had gone to him last game instead of chasing all these value pieces that did not hit unless you played Zayd Lowry. He barely hit at his price tag. But Stevie Mitchell at 5,500, he's just a junkyard dog. His usage rate, shot rate on the season are not great, but when you pull Tyler Kolek out of the mix, he's got to facilitate more. He's got to take more shots. He's a very good rebounder for his position. So took 13 shots last game, scored nearly 30 fantasy points, had 9 rebounds. You definitely have to look at him at 5,500. I know this UConn matchup is pretty terrifying as we see the line just continue to move here, 17th in defensive efficiency. But price adjusted, I would go to Stevie Mitchell. And then you have all these guys that we went to the other day that completely burned us. I think the best option out of Ross, Norman, and Lowry is Ross. Because we played him when Kolek's been in. Whenever they played DePaul or Georgetown, it's just slot in Chase Ross. He'll go out and get you 20 fantasy. He'll go out and get you 5X so that way you can go ahead and make some coin in those spots. But, yeah, getting the start there, only 4 fantasy points was not a great game for him. Obviously, his rates are going to climb whenever Kolek's out here, but he still played 23 minutes. You have to figure if he plays a little bit better, he's probably going to get run closer to the game stays high, maybe into the high 20s. And you do like his other rates outside of his shot rate. Good rebounder for his size, a 3% steal rate, shooting almost 40% from 3. So at 4,300, I know it may be tempting to look at Norman at 3,600 or Lowry at 3,300, but both of those guys together only combined for 18 fantasy points when Ross has 20 fantasy point upside on his own when everyone's healthy. So I think we have to look at Chase Ross for sure. A couple more guys on this squad here at the front court. Eric, what say you on Joplin and Gold?
Yeah, let's take a look at the front court. David Joplin at 6.7K, had pretty close to a ceiling game that last time out against Creighton, gave you a 30 spot. Granted, that was without both Kolek and Iguodala in that case. So, maybe he doesn't get back to quite that level in this one, but with Kolek out, everyone's got to do a little bit more. And Joplin in particular just absolutely loves to chuck, right? It is not outside of the range of outcomes for him to put up a dozen plus shots in any game, right? So, it feels like now that we're looking at a pretty handsome price increase here, right? He went up a good $900. That's obviously going to be a limiting factor on his ceiling, so it's probably not someone that I'm going to make a priority, but he could have a solid game, just not quite a ceiling game, assuming that we do see Oso return, right? That's kind of the caveat to all of this. The other big man that we need to talk about here is a big man in the literal sense, almost 7 foot 250, Ben Gold, right? Just his role in this offense is super intriguing. They're gonna need him for his size, but despite being a meaty man slapping meat, he plays a little bit more like a guard, right? He's taken almost 100 3-point attempts. He's got a bit more versatility to his game, so he can obviously rebound. He shoots threes. He'll chip in some stocks here and there. He feels like he's got a number of different ways that he can pay off 4.6K, right? So definitely an intriguing option. Klingon probably off the floor when he comes in, so he's he might have a little bit of a matchup advantage individually. Of the two forwards that we talked about here, I definitely am erring more on the side of Ben Gold than I am David Joplin.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. And who doesn't love some big meaty men slapping meat? Gold checks off all the boxes there. Hey, listen, guys, we're sort of UConn won the first matchup between these two by 28, right? And
correct.
Kolek was awful in that one, two for the universe. It wasn't great. Okay, we know that one wasn't good. So this time around, no Kolek even in the lineup here. Marquette at home, they're playing good basketball right now, so it's going to be. I don't know. I'm not as worried about this one really getting out of hand, but
and if it doesn't, they got a lot of good pricing, price adjusted options. I mean, Oso 72, Mitchell 55, Ross 43, Gold 46. Game stays close, you're probably going to need a Marquette guy.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Or two. Who knows? Got to tinker with that a little bit. That closes out the showcase games, all 3 showcase games tonight. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us here on this fine Tuesday evening. If you're watching live for this Wednesday 10 gamer on DK that we are hitting up right now, as our guy Ryan's hitting us up in the live chat. Sorry for the late arrival. Let's get this bread with the fire emojis, dropping them in there. Ryan, you know what to do. Making up for it. You show up late, and that means since it's not donuts in the morning, I guess. If you show up late, you got to bring the fire emojis easily. That'd be the flamage. Got to bring the flamage. And so thanks for hanging out with us, Ryan. As we get into the tiers, not the tiers for fears, although everybody does want to rule the world here in DK. I'm going to start the high tier off with Khalif Battle. We had a comment earlier on in the show. Battle
He's
almost
ran more than Connect.
Well, here's the deal. When you put up a few straight 2-digit scores with the 5 is the first number, 50 burgers, 3 straight now. For Battle, you kind of warrant the price here. And now, I mean, it's who's you have to play? Is it Tennessee? Is the tough defense? No, it's LSU.
LSU.
It's LSU. Khalif Battle at 9.4 might even be too cheap, especially for a guy that plays all the minutes. And he takes all the shots. We don't necessarily love Arkansas value because of how many guys they ran out there, but you know what the consistent thing is for the Razorbacks, and that consistent thing is named Khalif Battle. So at 9.4K, that is my high play, or my high tier play. It might be my high play as well, but it is also my high tier play. Eric, I'm going to go to you here for your play in the high so high tier.
I'm going to run it back all the way to the top of the show where I was talking about this Houston UCF game being kind of weird, but there being some intrigue with the Cougs. Jamal Shed, 8.7K, huge shot rates, usage rates. He distributes, he steals, right? Like a guy that's going to be out there for, high 30s minutes on any given night. That first time out gave you 10, 7, and 5 plus 5 stocks. So you will happily take that at 8.7K. Like it doesn't feel like with this subpar game environment, people are going to be tripping over themselves to spend about 9K on a player, and those are the opportunities, the windows that we have to slide through. So I like to get a little bit weird with Jamal Shed. Mike, close this out in the high tier.
Well, since Jay over here is going with Mr. Battle to make me look like an idiot for saying that he would not hit 50 again, so going for 4 straight 50s, I'll go on the other side of this. I'll go with Jordan Wright, who has been just okay, but we know Arkansas's defense is not Tennessee and it's not South Carolina, and he's playing 35 minutes a game, and I know the shots have come down. His shot rates come down recently, but he's still rebounding the ball. He can still get you some stocks. This game environment, 27 people are going to play in this game, which is going to be really annoying. But you have to like Wright in this spot. I mean, you're guaranteed the minutes basically, and you're guaranteed a soft defensive matchup. So Jordan Wright here at 7,600. Like 7,600, I'm in on this. Like if you're building through the the low 5Ks for your value, and you want to get up to these mid 7 guys, like he's certainly an option. I don't mind it at all. So on the road at Arkansas hasn't it's not anything to really be worried about. So definitely like me some Jordan Wright here.
We're both dipping into that Arkansas LSU game, and it makes a lot of sense, right? The total is above 155 implied, so We're gonna have to find ways to get in it. Just because we didn't showcase that game doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't important plays to make and players to rotate into your lineup. Some guys to really start your lineups around in this high tier. At least all of a sudden the Arkansas starters play 50 minutes. Yeah, it would be great.
Tremont Mark and Lee Battle also playing every minute.
So weird.
It's so weird.
You think it's going to stay the same? Do we trust that it's going to stay that way?
Every time we think.
Kidding me?
I mean, really, like honestly, we know better than to buy in, don't we?
Yeah. It's not a question of trust. It's a question of, are you ready to be hurt again? And
do you really want to hurt me? Yeah, I'm always ready.
Alive.
Always ready to be hurt. Just put it right into my veins and let's ride. Let's ride right into the old mid tier, where I am hopping on the Emmanuel Miller train at 7.1K for TCU. You know where Emmanuel Miller's playing? Country roads take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Country roads. And Emmanuel Miller is going to be up and down those country roads all night long in Morgantown. He's guaranteed 32, 33, 34 minutes against a bad West Virginia defense. Probably more of if we're talking about spending 7,100 on him, I would probably stick with him more in cash games here at this price. He did go for 29 fantasy points in the first matchup, and his last 5, he's gone for 29, 17, 41, 34, and 23. I like Miller's floor against the Mountaineers at 7.1K for sure. Eric, give us your play in the old mid-tier.
And we've been living in the mid-tier all season long, and one of our favorite players to go to in this mid-tier, Tamin Lipsey, checking in at a pretty familiar low 6K price tag, 6.2K in this instance. Big-time pace-up spot at home. Another, solid price decrease due to 15 and 16 in those last 2, right? So it's kind of creeping up a little bit. Now he's back into that price range that we feel more comfortable with. Legitimately can, put up between 25 and 30 points and, maybe even 35 in this one, right? So Like I think that he's too cheap for a guy that has got a 25% usage rate, 22% shot rate, 31% assist rate. He also pokes him out pretty well, 5% steal rate, right? So, this guy that at his highs, was creeping up into the 8Ks. Like, we're going to talk about him getting paced up for the low sixes. Like, definitely don't mind how this one sets up for Taman Lipsy. Mike, I mentioned that Lipsy is a familiar play for us. I think you've got another familiar play that we keep going back to the well on in the mid tier.
Yeah, I didn't know we'd be an hour into the show once we mentioned a play from Butler Xavier, because it's a 2-point spread and a 156-point total. But here we are. Butler 7,300, Posh Alexander. Here's the thing about Butler, though, right? Like, you got to be careful with these guys. None of these guys really scream like major star power. I feel like Posh is really the one guy that can really reach back and get into the 40s. I know DJ Davis did it, but guess what? DJ Davis did that against DePaul, and I think St. John's had like 500 points against DePaul in the first half.
I had 30 points against DePaul.
I think you could get your 6.5 fantasy points against DePaul. It's ridiculous. So the one guy I would play from the Butler side, like, I'm not touching Telford at 6,900. I'm not playing Jalen Thomas ever again this year. Luckily, that should only be a few more games here. DJ Davis, I'm not going to chase that ceiling after he'd been in the teens and low 20s. Posh is somebody that I think is probably going to go overlooked. At 7,300, he's getting the price increase, and we're playing him in the mid sixes. I burned everybody last time out in that DePaul game. Like, he was 25% owned and only put up 21 fantasy points. So everybody's going to hop off of this train. And guess what? You're getting the pace up with Xavier, and he put up 43 against them the first time. So Posh Alexander, every time he gets into this price point, I'm just going to jump in there and just take a shot at him in large field tournaments, especially in this type of game environment. So I'm a little nervous about the Butler side as well as the Xavier side, especially with Xavier's like, I don't know why the hell Quincy Olivari is still 9,200 or whatever. Davion McKnight's like 8K, and Desmond Claude is up into the 7. So it's like you're paying for their production, even though the ceiling, maybe 40, 45 fantasy points, you're actually paying for that, which is why this Butler Xavier game wasn't showcased for us. But, one of these guys is probably going to go 4 to 5X. My guess would be in a tournament that Posh can get there at 5X.
That makes a lot of sense. What we got in the live chat over here going on? It's on fire again. What do you know?
Let's see. Jody's saying loves Amir, loves Tyson Walker under 7K. We haven't talked about the Michigan State Northwestern game. Boo Booey's 9K. I don't mind him as a contrarian tournament play. Yeah, Tyson Walker, anytime he's under 7K, you can play him. That game total's ugly. Like, that's going to be an absolute just slugfest there. So I'm more interested in Ryan Langborn doesn't play. Then you have some value options there on the Northwestern side. So we'll have to pay attention to that. It sounds like he is going to play. Mama Rock saying there it is. Jesse Season.
Jesse Edwards.
And then Ryan hopping in there at 6.2 for Lipsy is way too cheap for his upside. And yeah, we will still be punished for playing it. I have a feeling
there's a reason he's 6.2.
We will, yeah, but
he has not been playing well.
love the upside. We were begrudgingly coughing up just over 8K, right?
Yeah, it's so, like 8.6 at one point.
His price has swung so wildly this season.
Yeah, like Eric, you like to talk about how a lot of times it takes a while where it climbs up and then it takes forever to climb back down. Lipsy is literally the up and the down and the ebbs and the flows. And when you can get him on the way back up is when you want to grab Lipsy. And 6.2 does feel like the right time to do that. The old low tier. Oh, my goodness. We've all followed the rules, only one apiece so far. I don't know if we're going to be able to stick with it. I shouldn't have jinxed it here. But for the low tier, I'm going back to that Houston game and Damian Dunn. Injuries opening up some minutes here for Dunn. They don't, obviously it's not a one-for-one swap there, but it looks like Sampson's going to play a little bit smaller, so Dunn looks like he's going to soak up some of that usage. He was a great scorer for the Owls out in Temple. And then recently, 25 minutes at Oklahoma, 14.5 fantasy points. You don't need a big number to get there. It only costs 3.4K. I feel like he's going to be kind of popular at this price, knowing that he's going to get some run. But it's not a bad idea, even if it does end up being a free square, to have it at 3.4K, especially if he gets you 14 or 15. Like, you take that and you run with it and you grab your points from your big dollar guys. So I'm liking Damian Dunn a lot in this one. Eric, who's your low tier play?
Ooh, that's me. Where do I
you.
want to go here? We can go over to Armstrong for Villanova, right? Mark Armstrong. The story here is we're seeing his minutes move in the right direction. 5 games ago, 14 minutes, then 20, 23, 29, 34 for a guy that's sub 5K. Like, don't mind that at all. Armstrong is obviously a very talented kid. You know, he's got 5X ceiling, and this is a Villanova squad that is hanging on for dear life, trying to make a case for an at-large bid. So, look, like if they're going to make their way in, like, I think they're really going to need his playmaking. So, you know, like how this one sets up. To be fair, right, like, not exactly talking about a huge sample size with Armstrong here. There is going to be some risk, but like, we're sub 5K, right? Like, that is the name of the game. Find me a guy below 5K that doesn't carry a bit of risk. If I'm going to absorb that risk, don't mind a guy that's a 4.9 that's seeing his minutes creep up into the mid 30s all of a sudden. So I'll look at Armstrong in a must-win spot for Villanova. Mike, which low-tier play are you looking to offer up for someone that's in a must-win spot in the DFS streets?
All right, so I kind of shit on the Xavier guys up at the top. There's a reason why, because I'm going to Xavier. I am doing this very, very scary thing where I'm going to this Xavier front court that has like 6 guys. You don't know who the hell's playing. I don't barely know how to say this guy's name. Kachi Inzi, 4,200. A smash spot against Butler DVP wise. Like, Butler cannot stop anybody inside. The big man here is starting to play some minutes. And if you look at it, you know, almost a fantasy point per minute type player. We saw that today with Georgia. You give these guys 25 minutes, they will pay you off. So NC here, I know it's Georgetown, but that's another center DVP spot. This is a center DVP spot against Butler. You know, Marquette, he played 15 minutes, had 14 fantasy points. At Seton Hall, Bediako, another decent DVP spot for centers, had nearly 20 fantasy points. So if he's going to play high 20s minutes, and it would not be surprised if his minutes got cut back down. So he's very risky, very volatile. Would only use him in tournaments for sure. Man, like, I'm going to take probably, I don't want to say I'm going 50-50 with him, but it feels like if he's going to get 28 minutes, you're going to get at least 18 to 20 fantasy points at 4,200. You are absolutely LIVIN with that. So,
Levin.
Yeah, Levin. All three of these value plays, and you can go out and you can play any and everybody that you want on this slate. So that's not even without the injury stuff that's going on. So, man, this is a very volatile play, but chasing the minutes here.
Understand why you want to be a part of that. Jody talking about Armstrong smoking Seton Hall the first time out, and Jody likes the Dunn play too. We told you coming in that the value was there. We were bringing you some value tonight, and we feel pretty confident in these value plays this evening. So, like Mike said, so for this Wednesday 10 gamer, you can get to really anybody that you want on this slate if you stick to some of these value guys that we're talking about. Faux show! Those are the tiers. If you made it this far and you haven't hit the subscribe button yet,
what is you doing?
What is you doing? Who is you is and who is you ain't? Mike said, what do we got? If you play those 3, you have 7,500 left. So if you start with those 3, is that right? Is that what it is, guys? If you plug those 3 guys in, then you have 7,500 for the next 5.
That's a lot.
You are talking about living LIVI.
Oh boy,
for sure. Hey, that's good stuff there in the tiers. Now let's get to that world famous Core Four and more. It's the Core Four. You know we do cash and tournament Core Fours. Let's start with the cash game core with Mike. What do you got?
Yeah, so I mean, as much as I would love to start my tournament lineups with those three guys and 7,500, and then both Miami guys being out, you play Keyshawn George at 6K. Now you have like 8,400 for each player, whatever it is. I, for cash, would not want to play any of those guys because of the volatility. Damian Dunn is not guaranteed to play mid-20s minutes. Mark Armstrong's not guaranteed to do anything, and NZ is not guaranteed to do anything as well. So tournament plays only for those guys, it feels like. If I'm going to cash value, I'll just dip my toe into the mid-5s, and I'll start with Stevie Mitchell, who is going to have to play 32 to 34 minutes. I know it's a tough matchup against UConn, but he's 5,500. He's a lot safer cash play. When you're dealing with cash, like, you don't need these like guys that are absolutely volatile. You need something very steady. Anytime he's played more than 27 to 28 minutes, he's delivered into the 20 fantasy points, which you love as a floor for Mitchell. I'll go with Jay's pick here, Emmanuel Miller at 7,100 at West Virginia. He just plays a pile of minutes. You love his rates. You love I know it's on the road, but you love the matchup in particular for him. West Virginia doesn't play a lot of defense here, and TCU is on the bubble. So you love to play these teams that are absolute, unless it's Butler against St. John's, you absolutely love to play these teams that are in desperation mode. So you feel like Emmanuel Miller, at least a 30 fantasy point lock here. And then I'm gonna look at Matthew Cleveland here for cash. Now this is the caveat that Pack and Poplar are out. You can also look at Keyshawn George here, but he's a little more volatile. I want to take my 25 to 30 fantasy points that Matthew Cleveland is going to produce here. I'm gonna take my 3.5, my 4x, and my double ups, and I'm just gonna move on with Matthew Cleveland at 7,100. Jamal Shed here at 8,600. Just plays a pile of minutes. The rates are incredible. He already put up 36 fantasy points, which is 4x against this team. It is on the road. He's going to have the ball in his hands a ton as per usual. 8,600. I'm not afraid to do it in cash. Probably a little scarier on the road as far as a tournament ceiling, but this guy very rarely goes under 30 fantasy points. So loving Jamal Shed for cash games. And that gives you 5.4K left if you want to take a shot at one of those cheapies, and you can still make it work throughout.
Wow, how generous of you. 5.4K. What a guy you are. What a guy. You know who else is a guy? Eric's a guy, and he's going to give you our tournament Core Four.
So Mike kicked off fairly enough or reasonably enough in the cash game context, saying that Dunn is probably a little bit too dicey to click the button on when you were talking about cash games, but that is absolutely not the case when we're putting in the tournament context. I will eat that risk happily with a smile on my face to get someone on my build that is 3.4K. So definitely we'll start there. That value play looks very strong. If you want to be a little bit more conservative, there are plenty of other options that you can get up to if you want to maybe hedge your bets a little bit in this one. Moving on down the line, the next option here for me is going to be Damon Lipsey. We talked about him before. He's sitting, at a near low point for his price tag, 6.2K, for good reason. Because of that, I don't think a whole lot of people are going to go there. And this is absolutely the opportunity that you have to pounce on. Like, all of his measurables, all of his rates are exactly what you want out of a high upside player. He gets back to, even kind of above average form for himself, and he is going to smash that 6.2K price tag. Donovan Clingan, 8.1K. We talked about him facing off against Marquette. 45, 50-point upside in this type of game environment. The rates are just absolutely bonkers. And, just a kind of league average, sort of a mediocre Marquette defense against the big man. So like Clingan to eat in this one. Last but certainly not least, the Bizarro World 9.4K Khalif Battle sitting here for Arkansas for the suddenly top-heavy Razorbacks. Another 50 piece in the works, maybe, right? If you want to save a little bit of coin, you want to go with a player that is maybe not quite as volatile as Battle. You can slide down to Connect, but I mean, look, like I think there are reasons why all 4 of these guys can pop off on tomorrow's slate. And I think there are a lot of reasons why these guys aren't going to be particularly popular. So starting your tournament builds off this way, it gets to the upside, gets you different from the rest of the field. I really like building around these 4 in the tournament context.
Dunn, Livesey, Klingon, and Battle, some superstars indeed for your lineup, man. The Dunn play, he's either going to score 22 or 2. I just feel like that's what it is.
Throw Inzi in there as well, man.
Yeah, why not?
Right.
Same scenario, right? But yeah, liking the cores tonight. Guys, liking the live chat, still on fire as we get up. Loving the KC Rose hat, Jay. Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, this is actually that right there. The little crest right there. That glows in, where is it? That glows in the dark if you charge it up.
Hey,
so that's turn
the lights off. Prove it.
Dark edition.
Can't tell if he's being serious.
Well, no, it does. So when you guys are doing your closing thoughts, I'm going to charge this thing up, and then we're gonna turn the lights up and see if they work.
Yeah, buddy.
Bobby
Still don't know if he's showing.
Bobby Witt MVP run. We have our fantasy baseball draft this Sunday. All 3 of us are in the league together. We have been for over a decade and a half. Now we're gonna keep our league. None of us have had Witt. Oh, Mike did for a second, but that's a long story, and we won't get into that. Jody saying the slate's crazy. Every guy we met, so much value, so many good players here. Yeah, no snowflakes, only fire. That's for sure.
Yeah.
We're not trying to see it, but hey, Jody, I saw you pull the 2 out of 10 auto of Witt. I want to put this one up here right here. This is the old Billy Ripken on the old bat knob. If you know, you know. If you know, you know. The old expletive there on the old Billy Ripken bat knob. I always got my cards around, guys. Y'all know that.
What about the Tom and Mansky?
back to back AAU national championships. Let's get the captain's closing thoughts. I'm going to step up here and charge this hat up by this light here. So, Mike, go ahead and give us your closing thoughts on the slate.
I'm supposed to follow that up as is he okay? I guess that's a real thing.
Oh, yeah. We're doing it.
I'll echo some of the sentiments Jody just said. There's a lot of guys like, ooh, I want to play him. Ooh, I want to play him. Ooh, that value looks very interesting. That value is also pretty terrifying. But I don't know. Like, you'd love to mix it up, right? Like, you just don't want to have the slates where it's like, I don't know, like today, it's like, oh, we need something to happen to, like, feel comfortable. Well, we kind of feel a little more comfortable than we did sitting here 24 hours ago. We were waiting on tons. We already have guys that we know are going to have roles. So, picking the right guys. And then also don't forget, and sometimes this happens to me, do not forget that you don't always have to have run backs. You like, if you had just played MJ Collins, Sean Padula, Robbie Barron against a bad Louisville team, and if you just played PJ Hall and like Chase Hunter against a bad Syracuse defense, you would have won all the money. But sometimes getting too cute, trying to get into the highest total, trying to get into the just project, all this stuff. It's like at a certain point, it's just kind of last week when I went on the heater, it was like, whoever's the ball's playing, I'm just going to play 2 guys from that game. So just doing that sometimes is, more than worth his weight in gold. And sometimes we get caught up in game theory. We want to try to get the run back with it. It's like, well, the run back may not hit 4X. So why don't you just play the 2 or 3 guys that make the most sense? So it's kind of a public service announcement as DFS players to not forget that there are more than 10 ways in DFS to skin a cat.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, you mentioned that you are going to echo one of Jody's sentiments. I'm going to tell you, but with a different sentiment altogether, there are so many different ways that you can attack this slate. This might be the perfect time to 150 max, or if you're not trying to pull your hair out, keeping up with all of that, maybe take a look at dropping down your stakes and getting a few more lineups in the mix, right? Like if you're typically in the pull-up jumper, maybe jump down to the dollar and get 20, 25, 30 lineups in there. If you're like Mike and you're dropping $180 a pop to get into the 6K windmill, maybe drop down and slum it up with us in the pull-up jumper, right? So there are so many ways to do it. Plenty of value on the board, and there's going to be even more value opening up. I tried to pull this move off tonight as the Georgia value was opening up. I thought that would actually pull people away from some of the value we talked about on the show. It did. And then we didn't have good line of sight in reporting, and it bit me in the ass. So if I had a few more lineups, I could potentially work my way around that. And working my way up and down this chat, this thing was lively the entire night. Jody, Ryan, Mama Rocks, Forklift Jeremy, Napesy Hustle, all here rocking with us tonight. And I think we have the conductor queued up for a very special sign off. Let's see how that hat's looking, Jay. Hey, yo.
Wait, is he there? Oh, there he is, right there.
Yo.
All right.
There we go. We're back. We're back in bed. You can see it, man. It looks so damn good. It's hard to tell in this cam, but I told you guys we had the old glow in the dark. Hey, why don't I go ahead and turn this light on to tell you that One and Done is powered by the world's greatest website. That is drroto.com. We are here doing this 4, 5, 20 nights a week, whatever it is. We are out here in these DFS streets, putting out the content. Thanks, everybody, for hopping in that live chat. Make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons.
Do it.
If you haven't, thanks to everybody. Make sure you tell somebody that you love them. Take care of yourself also. It's very, very important. We appreciate you. We love you. Thanks for hanging out with us in the Green Screens Media universe. Now let's go out there. Let's get this bread, baby.
Choo-choo.
Thanks for stopping by the office. Get your fantasy prescription by subscribing to the channel and checking out drroto.com. And until the next visit, be well and take care.